Two bills have been filed in both houses of Congress, seeking to reform the country's party list system. Will these measures have enough support to become a law? Good morning, I'm Gerg Cahiles sitting in for Attorney Karen Jimeno, and this is At the Forefront. Continue to hound the country's party list system. Allegations of abuse by political dynasties and politicians who want to stay in power by becoming a party list representative for a sector they actually do not represent. Lawmakers at the House and Senate seek to remedy this by amending Republic Act 7491 or the Party List System Act. Will they succeed? Let's discuss this with UP Professor Danilo Arao. He's also the convener of election watchdog Kontra Daya. Good morning, Professor Arao.
Yes, good morning, Gerg. Kontra Dayang umaga sa lahat ng mga tagapanood.
Well, unahin na po natin, how will you describe in a nutshell itong party list system sa Pilipinas?
It's well-meaning when it was enacted under the 1987 Constitution and when there was a law on the Party List System Act in 1995. But through the years, it's been hijacked, bastardized, prostituted, you choose the word, and more or less, you get an idea of what has been done by the rich and powerful, where they entrench themselves in Congress. They are able to get a backdoor to Congress. They are able to get additional seats for political dynasties. This was a useful tool to train their sons, daughters, and other younger relatives so that they can get a feel of what it's like when they take over from the matriarch or the patriarch. So that has been, in a nutshell, how the party list system has been misused and abused, unfortunately.
Strong words, no?
Yes.
From Professor Arao, no? Sabi nga niya, in a nutshell, ganon. Choose the words that you wanted to use to describe the party list system. But bakit? How come it happened that the rich and the powerful, the politicians, the political dynasties managed to do that sa party list system na supposedly representing the marginalized in making laws of the country?
Well, it's like asking how is it that libel has been used as a weapon against journalists when in fact it should be a check and balance mechanism for fair reportage. So the rich and powerful found a way to ensure that they can be represented in Congress by saying that they may not be part of the marginalized and underrepresented, but they are quote-unquote advocates or champions of their causes. And unfortunately, maybe we'll discuss this later on, there is an anti-dynasty provision, anti-political dynasty provision in the Constitution, but there has been no enabling law since we passed the Constitution in 1987. There had been efforts to do that, but these were summarily blocked. And this is closely related to the party list system where dynasties have extended to controlling what is supposed to be for the poor. So it has become an instrument and a playground for the rich.
Kumbaga, hindi pa nakontento sa mga elected positions in their mga kanya-kanya nilang lugar, di ba?
Exactly.
And hijacking, sabi mo nga, itong party list system.
Sorry.
Go ahead, sir.
Considering the fact, that's a good point, di na sila nakontento because we have to consider the fact that the party list system is only 20% of Congress. So, bakit happy na nga, ba't hindi pa sila happy dun sa 80% na control nila sa Congress or sa HOR to be more specific, gusto pa nilang kontrolin yung 20% na dapat na para sa mahihirap na sana.
Okay.
Sana.
Now, Akbayan Party List Representative Shell Jokno said House Bill number 7074 seeks to restore the true intent of the law and keep the party list system out of the hands of those who seek to exploit it. It also guarantees that marginalized sectors have a real voice in Congress. Are you confident that this measure will be effective in cleaning up the party list system?
The Akbayan bill is just one of the many bills that are filed in the House of Representatives. I understand there are also efforts in the Senate to pass the genuine party list reform laws. But the bottom line here, Gerg, is regardless of the consolidated version, there has to be a clear anti-dynasty provision, anti-political dynasty provision. There has to be a clear vetting of party list representatives, party list nominees who will become the party list representatives if they get elected. And of course, aside from the dynasties, we have to make sure that big business interests will not hold hostage again the party list system for their own interests. So that's the bottom line. I mean, I'm sure Representative Jokno's bill is well-meaning, but we have to look at the bigger picture and try to consolidate the best version that we can have.
And of course, alam naman natin na kapag sa paggawa ng batas, it will require a lot of discussions,
Correct.
a lot of debates. Hindi lang sa plenary, kundi simula pa nga lang sa committee level. Ano?
Yes.
And in your experience, siguro in the past po, no, I'm sure napag-usapan na ito.
Yes,
Pero
definitely.
hanggang saan lang umaabot?
Actually, as early as the early 2000s, actually even in the late 1990s, there had been discussions on reforming the party list laws, but these are archived for the most part for the simple reason that no one wants to touch it with a 10-foot pole, so to speak. But what makes it different now is that no less than the House Speaker, the new House Speaker, expressed remarks that this should be a priority, and from what I understand, Marcos Jr. also said that this should be one of the 4 political measures that should be enacted along with the anti-political dynasty bill, the blockchain bill, and the reorganization of the ICI. So these remarks, let's see if this can hold water. Although, using the word water, what we're worried about would be the watered-down version of the party list law or even the anti-political dynasty law if they get passed.
Oo nga, sir. Pero, well, as you mentioned, it is a priority bill, but it's not an urgent bill. So you think it's like a form of a lip service on the part of the president, given that there is a strong clamor for the passage of this kind of law? Yeah.
Actually, that's a good bureaucratic way of putting it, because certifying it as urgent is another thing altogether. What we're talking about are just simply remarks, press statements, if you may. So we're still waiting for the administration version or the administration bills on the anti-political dynasty or even the proposed party list reform law. But we can only surmise that House Bill number 6771 passed by House Speaker D and the son of the President, Majority Leader Marcos, would be more or less the administration version. And I'm sorry to say, on national television right now, it's unacceptable, that particular House Bill number 6771, because it's supposed to be anti-dynasty, anti-political dynasty in title, but in essence, it's very much pro-dynasty. And it doesn't even discuss the importance of removing dynastic succession, and it only disallows or prohibits the proliferation of political dynasties in certain instances. But the possibility of having relatives at the national and the local levels, so they're still very much possible. And one more important thing, I hope I'm not taking too much time here.
Yeah, go ahead.
There's a need to also look at appointive positions, because apparently the law on the Code of Conduct for Government Employees, there's an anti-nepotism provision there. It doesn't apparently work for presidential appointees, because right now you have brothers, you have mag-apo or mag-ama na nag-occupy not just the secretary position but even the undersecretary position. So those aspects regarding dynastic control should also be looked at. And we call on Congress to also look at that forgotten aspect of appointive positions.
So dapat elective at appointed o appointive positions, dapat i-cover ng anti-political dynasty bill.
Yes, because appointive positions, for example, at the secretary level, they're just as damaging as the elected positions, whether in Congress or at the local government levels or even at the Malacanang level.
Alam mo, actually, Professor Arao, may nakita nga ako, kahit hindi nga doon sa level ng appointive positions ng presidente, even yung mga staff. I'm sure nakita mo rin yun. May isang politiko tayo na lahat daw ng staff niya ay kamag-anak.
Masarap daw ang buhay nila. Yeah, I saw the same meme, yes.
It's difficult that you see something like that, because it says a lot about how you wanted to run your office. Now, there are party list groups that genuinely represent a marginalized
Correct.
sector, but there are those that do not.
Yeah.
May kapangyarihan ba yung COMELEC to stop this sa level pa lang nila? Kasi kung nahihirapan tayong i-push as a law, yung COMELEC ba, bakit wala silang kapangyarihan? O meron?
Yeah, the short answer there is they're not doing what they're supposed to do.
Okay.
You know, the nature of COMELEC is that it's quasi-judicial. So it can make certain judgment calls regarding the vetting, not just of the party list groups that are trying to apply, as well as the party list nominees who are trying to get in. I mean, we can understand if COMELEC needs additional funding to ensure that the vetting process will be pursued, but they have to make that case before Congress that that their budget should be increased. I mean, we're not pinning the blame on the employees and staff of the COMELEC. They're underworked, they're underpaid. We understand that. But for the COMELEC commissioners and the COMELEC chair, through the years, they should have more assertion to ensure that they can really block the rich and powerful from toying with and making a virtual playground of the party list system.
Halimbawa nga lang, Professor, yung nangyayari yung investigation after the fact na.
Yes,
Na-elect
exactly.
na sila bago pa mangyari yung investigation ng COMELEC just because may lumabas na issues.
Exactly.
It's difficult when it's like that.
It's
Dapat
very reactive and you need to be proactive. In fact, I can even boldly say that Kontra Daya wouldn't need to come up with those studies of party list groups through the years if COMELEC would do their job. I mean, they should be the one to ensure that the party list system really lives up to the expectations of the framers of the 1987 Constitution. I don't want to sound like a broken record here, but if you read that particular provision in the Constitution, clearly identified naman ano-ano yung mga sektor. And the only notable exception would be religious groups by virtue of the separation of church and state. That should be enough basis for the COMELEC to say that this party list system should be, mainly for the marginalized and the underrepresented.
Now, let's talk about the Duterte youth. Kasi it's an example of yung aftermath na nung pagkapanalo nila, tsaka nagkaroon ng decision ng COMELEC, and it's years after.
Yes, correct.
Professor Arao, is it really a lapse on the part of the electoral body, or is it something else? But before you answer that, at the forefront, we'll be back after a short break. Welcome back at the forefront. We continue our conversation with Kontra Daya convenor, Professor Danilo Arao. Now, Sir Danny, yung tanong ko nga kanina,
Yes.
about the case of Duterte youth. Kasi ang sabi ng COMELEC, it's void from the beginning.
Yes.
And ilang years na sila nagsaserve sa Congress.
Kaya nga.
So was it the fault of COMELEC kung bakit nakapag-serve sila, or may ibang dahilan na nakikita yung inyong grupo?
It's a combination. There's a lot of, lapses on the part of COMELEC, but at the same time, you cannot but shake your head on the brazenness of, certain characters within the Duterte youth. Let's start with their failure to publish their failure to comply with the publication requirement. That's very basic. Number two, let's talk about, the overaged, initially, party list representative. And then let's talk about the other candidate who used a surname that's not really hers, but is part of their quote-unquote political branding, but apparently it's not allowed by the law. And let's not forget the most important part, the fact that they're not really for the youth, for the simple reason that their only bias is for red tagging the youth and the other sectors who criticize Duterte. And the fact that they're riding on at that particular time, the relative popularity of the sitting president, why is it that they're doing that? And for those who know history, let's not forget that there was once upon a time Hitler Youth during the time of Nazi Germany. Yeah, there was a Hitler Youth. Yeah. Actually, there are a lot of parallelisms when you look at their history, and actually I've read their oath of allegiance as they become members of, as certain people become members of,
Of that
Duterte
party.
Youth, and it bespeaks of the kind of the indoctrination that was done during the Third Reich in Germany.
Well.
So, those things would have to be, discussed.
Okay, going back to the bill,
Yes.
the party list reform bill that was filed by Congressman Shaljok,
Yeah.
dinefine nila doon yung political dynasty up to fourth degree of consanguinity and
Tama.
affinity, including partners. So,
Yes.
and also, sinabi niya, dapat yung mga contractors, yung mga congressman na mayroong interest, business interest, or possible conflict of interest sa gobyerno ay dapat hindi kasama.
Tama.
And also, sinabi niya na dapat tanggalin yung seat limit sa Congress.
Okay.
Pag-usapan natin yung mga contractors.
Yeah.
Ngayon, pinag-uusapan itong si Ako Bicol Party List Representative Zaldico and also si WS Party List Representative Gardiola.
Yes.
So, among others, the YAPs of which party list is this? Dati ACT-CIS siya dati, di ba? So, paano po yun? Ano pong pagtingin nyo doon, Professor?
Well, tama naman na dapat hindi lang usapin ng political dynasty. Big business interests should not, use the party list system to get seats in Congress. Actually, we've been doing that for quite some time now, and that would be two of the bases for our flagging questionable party list groups. Now, as regards proportional representation and the 3-seat limit, we can talk about that maybe when Congress holds public hearings, because there are certain nuances given the current political system. Don't get me wrong, Gerg. In other countries, party list systems do work well for the simple reason that the party system, okay, as opposed to the party list, but the party system are very much ideologically defined. And in a situation where we have an electoral system which is mainly celebrity-based, popularity contest, it's possible for one party list, rightly or wrongly, to corner most of the votes, not because they're serving the interests of the poor, but because they have the best propaganda machinery.
They're the advocates.
They are the advocates. They are the questionable ones, actually. And sometimes no amount of accusation, no amount of fact-checking can get in the way of getting as much votes as possible. We haven't discussed yet other forms of cheating, like vote buying, the rigging of the automated counting machines and all that. But if you put all of this together, there might be a need to have a certain degree of caution when we abolish, 3-seat limits and all that.
Now, if we are to be very optimistic,
Yes.
Professor Arao,
Yes.
if these genuine party list reform bills will be passed,
Yeah.
what will happen to the existing party list system?
Hopefully, it will be changed for the better, and we won't have dynastic control and big business interest control, as well as dubious advocacies, among many other red flags that we've hoisted through the years. So we would have a situation where sectors are adequately represented. However, they will still be in the minority. So the political dynasty will still hold sway. So we have to be level-headed about it. It's not as if this will be a very, very significant change in Congress as it is right now. The majority will still be the rich and powerful. But it's a step in the right direction when we want inclusivity in governance.
Balikan ko lang po, sorry, yung
Yes.
yung 3 seats na limit, di ba?
Yes.
That's the current state.
Yeah.
So, kapag tinanggal mo yung limit na 3 seats, so any party list can have
As
more
many
than
as
3,
you
as
want.
many as they can.
Yeah.
Basta maboto sila ng more than 2%. Ganon.
Yes.
Pero anong dangers niya?
Well,
At least offhand yung nakikita ninyo.
yeah, offhand, if a questionable party list gets the most number of votes, they'll have the most number of seats. Because, don't get me wrong, the passage of a genuine party list law would be good. But there can still be certain rooms for abuse. Given the fact that, as I mentioned a while ago, the prevailing political system has not been radically transformed into something that's more ideologically defined. I mean, and even, forms of election cheating, we can still expect them in 2028 and beyond. So even at the risk of sounding, even at the risk of stating the obvious, those with less funds to campaign can still end up being marginalized by those with no clear program but with a lot of money to spend, awash with cash, kumbaga.
Kumbaga, mabuti sana kung talagang genuine party list yung mangunguna.
Yes.
Oo, but it's something else. Kapag sabi mo, baka mamaya skirt around lang ulit yung batas,
Yes.
and something will happen. Now,
Yeah, let's try to remind ourselves, sino ba yung top-notcher sa nakaraang party list election? I mean, aside from Akbayan, that would be Ako Bicol. And nasaan yung Ako Bicol ngayon? Nag-resign yung pangunahing karakter,
Yes.
yung main character sa flood control program. You talked about CWS. It is also involved to some extent in certain anomalies with regard to misuse of public funds. I mean, you know, and even at one point, the richest person in Congress happens to be a party list representative. I mean, those things have happened through the years, and we don't want that to happen again.
now, based on data po,
Yeah.
226 out of 318 or more than 70% of House
Yes.
members are from political dynasties.
Exactly.
Now, with bills seeking to reform the party list law, banning the political dynasties from joining it,
Yeah.
and as well as pushing for an anti-political dynasty bill, naniniwala ka ba na kaya talaga itong ipasa despite the push from the House leadership as well as from the President?
Yes and no. It can be passed, yes, but only if public pressure is sustained, where we can force to, majority of members of Congress to do something that goes against their interests. But of course, absent any political pressure, I think the most that we can expect would be them giving lip service to political dynasty and party list reform. For example, they will pass House Bill number 6771, which is inherently unacceptable,
Yes,
but there will be nothing much changed in the political system because the political dynasties will still exist, dynastic succession will still happen, among many other negative repercussions of that particular bill. And the same with the party list reform bills. They may make certain reforms here and there, but for the most part, they will still say that the rich and powerful should be allowed to run in Congress, to run in the party list system. So, those things we would have to watch out for. But having said that, I'm optimistic that public pressure can still work wonders.
Pero up to what extent? I mean, ang dami na nating nakitang public pressure, pero meron naman talagang
Merong?
ayokong sabihin yung
Yes.
term, pero hindi pa rin sila naaapektuhan.
Exactly.
Oh, that's a problem. Baka talagang anong tawag dito?
Yeah.
baka malibel tayo, but
Well, that's a typical a typical journalist like you will always be jaded and sorry for using the word
Yes.
pessimistic. But of course, I as a journalist would share your view. But as a clean elections advocate, I would like to be more circumspect without taking away or invalidating your views. It's
Yes.
just that we have to hope. Otherwise, if things are hopeless, what's the point of passing? Of trying to pass certain bills or certain laws. I mean, we have to try because, as they say, hope springs eternal. And we hope that something can happen.
of course, there's
Yes,
always
yes.
a room for changes. And
Yes, tama.
sabi mo nga, at the end of the day, it's the public that will dictate.
Correct.
Pero kailangan natin na mas aware, mas
Yes.
matalinong public. Otherwise, it will just be the same.
Correct. Yeah, it will just be the same in the sense that the same characters will still be there. And it's good that you made that point because the very people who will be passing anti-dynasty laws and party list reform bills are the same ones whose interests will be compromised by genuine changes. So it's very challenging.
But anyway, magre-resume na yung House session sa January 26.
Yes.
And yung discussion on political dynasty will happen on the 27th.
Correct.
Kayo ba ay inimbitahan na ng komite ni Congressman Adyong to participate in the
Yes.
discussion?
Yeah, I got the invitation already, and I can tell the public as early as now that we will be giving or submitting a position paper on the matter. Yes.
All right. Sana mapakinggan kayo, ano? Professor Danilo Arao, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Yeah, maraming salamat.
The country's party list system has been misused and abused. Politicians take advantage of the system to stay in power, claiming to represent groups that they are not part of. Bills seeking to reform the system should have enough support among lawmakers and even the president himself and the public, as mentioned by Professor Arao, so that the marginalized will have genuine representation in Congress. Be informed, be insightful of the news. I'm Gerg Cahiles. Always stay at the forefront.